same message on my screen a while ago.
Yes, 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 yes.
Mhm.
Now recording is started. So
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, um, I welcome everybody once again. And now today we are going to start a stretch actually of rules from the Tatpurusha section. And in the Panini Ashtadhyayi, we have a number of rules dealing with Tatpurusha. And then there is a section about the Shashti Samasa later on. But what we find in the Chandra is that he's basically combining all the Vibhakti Tatpurushas in one rule. And therefore, I think, as Professor Bhatti mentioned last time, we will first deal with all the rules in the Kashika, dealing with various Vibhakti Tatpurushas, except Shashti Tatpurusha. And then we'll come back to the Chandra rule, Karakam Bahulam. So, with these few words, I welcome Professor Bhate and request her to start today's session. Yeah, over to Professor Bhate.
Hello, friends. Uh, Before starting Tatpurusha, I think there are a couple of rules from Avyayi Bhava section which we haven't dealt with last time. So let us take those rules first and then we'll move to Tatpurusha. So in Kashika, last time we finished rule number 19 and we also saw the parallel Chandra Sutra. And today we begin with rule number 20, that is Nadi Bhishcha. Nadi Bhishcha Sankhya iti anuvartate. Nadi vachanaihi shabdaihi sah Sankhya samasyate. On account of the uh, mention of the particle cha in this rule, the word Sankhya is continued from the previous context. This is what he says in the first sentence, Sankhya iti anuvartate. Had there been no cha in the rule, perhaps just sup, supa, and samasaha would have been there present in this rule. Of course, avyayi bhava and other words. Nadi vachanaihi shabdaihi sah sankhya samasyate. The word nadi can be interpreted in three different ways. Nadi, either as the technical term nadi, the rule we use Trakhyav Nadi defines Nadi as that noun which ends in either long E or long U. So that is one meaning. Another meaning of Nadi is straight away, river. The third meaning of Nadi is the word Nadi itself. And here he says, which is the fourth, Nadi vachanaihi shabdaihi sah. So this actually is the fourth alternative, and that is all the words which are names of different rivers. And this is the meaning of the word Nadi in this context. And how do you decide this is the meaning and not other meanings are there? Well, number one, it is always the Vyakhyanato Vishesha Pratipattihi, and the other one is the clue here given by Padani himself, according to the commentators. And the clue is the use of the word Nadi in the plural. So, plural generally suggests that that particular word stands for uh, all its all its synonyms or the words which convey the meaning. Nadi vachanaihi, nadi vachakaihi shabdaihi sah sankhya samasyate. So ultimately what we have here is all the proper names of different rivers, they become constituent members in this compound, and the earlier constituent is Sankhya. So a numeral is compounded with a Samartha word, which is a name of a river. And that, no, it's not, the case is not mentioned here. It's only, it has to be Dvitiya, because the context is that of Dvitiya. Samahare cha ayamishyate. Yes, and this samasa is intended, sorry, is intended to be in samahara, but there is no clue again in Panini's sutra, as we found earlier also in case of rules like akshashalaka sankhyaha, etc. So we have to totally depend upon the usage, we have to totally depend upon the vyakhyana to decide the context of these compounds. Samahare cha ayam ishyate. So even this Dvitiya continuation also doesn't make any sense here. The example is Saptagangam. So since it is a Samahara, we find the Vigraha, constituent analysis in commentaries as Sapta Gangaha Samarutaha. Perhaps I have put it on the paper. Will you show the paper, Thalak, please?
Yes, please wait.
Sapta Ganga Samarutaha.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So we have the numeral Sapta, the name of the river Ganga, and Samahara has as the meaning of the whole compound. And I have shown the derivation, the process, the prakriya here, Saptan Jas, Ganga Jas, and actually it is a Dvigu compound by the rule Tathita Arsottarapada Samaharecha and then Sankhya Puru Dvigu. It has to be Dvigu. But here it is just Avyayi Bhava, because formally it is an Avyaya and therefore it has to be there in Avyayi Bhava. So thus we have Saptaganga, Supodhatu Pratipadikayoho, and then Gostriyoho Upasarjanasya makes the final A short, and it is Saptaganga. Then we add the case ending Sa, which is substituted by the rule Navyayi Bhavat Atom Tva Panchamyaha, and thus we have Saptagangam. So the derivation is not very difficult, very complicated. Samahare cha ayamishyate Dviyamunam Panchanadam Saptagodavara. So we have a number of examples here. Two Yamunas, or a group of two Yamunas, a group of here we have Nada. So we have to extend the scope of the word Nadi also to the word Nadi itself. Nadi, I wonder if the word Nadi itself is a proper name for a river. Has anyone come across? I mean, I am asking this to the Indian students who are attending this class. I am not sure, but Nadi is a general term for river. But whether it appears as a proper name for any river in particular, I am not sure about it. But if not, then we have to interpret the word Nadi in this sutra as number one, all the proper names of rivers, and number two, the word Nadi itself. So Varnanupurvi, Nadi. It also means a river, but most probably it's not a proper name of any river. And therefore, yeah, there is some interesting comment also which I have noted here, and that is from Balamanorama, and it says Atra Nadi Shabdena Nadi Shabda Visheshasya Nadi Vachakanam cha Grahanam Nadi Shabda Visheshasya. So particular word Nadi also is understood here along with Nadi Vachakas. Now actually this is okay about the examples and the explanation of the rule. But finally, the question which I face after reading these compounds is what exactly is understood from 7 Gangas or 7 Godavaris? Well, as far as all of us know, there are no 7 Gangas or 7 Godavaris. We know that there is only one Godavari and one Ganga. At one place, I found the explanation as 7 streams. When they say Sapta Gangaha, that means 7 streams of Ganges or Ganga, 2 streams of Yamuna, 7 streams of etc. etc. That is one possibility. But even then, I wonder if there is any place in India where we can find 7 streams of Ganga coming together, or even Ganga has 7 different streams. What I know is that many other rivers are also called Ganga. Like, Godavari in Nasik is called Ganga. Even in any river for that matter, in which people take a dip bath with some, holy feeling in their mind, they call it just Ganga. Gange cha Yamune cha, etc., etc. So that is again a question whether compounds like Sapta Gangam really make any sense as far as the literal meaning is concerned. Even if we understand stream by the name Ganga, streams of Ganga or streams of Yamuna, even then, can we connect it with reality? Is my question. But I have a very bad habit of asking questions which are very remotely connected with the context. But now I don't think I can change it because now I am in my 80s and it's very difficult for a person to change when he is that old. Anyway, so the next tool is, anyone has to make any comment on what I said right now? I mean, about the names of these rivers, then he can say right away. Otherwise, I will go to the next tool. Would you like to suggest any better interpretation for Sapta Gangam Panchanadam? Actually, as I said earlier, unless and until we check the usages, actual attestations of these words, perhaps we may not be able to understand the exact meaning of these compounds. For this compound Sapta Godavaram, there is just one slight change in the derivation, and that I have noted on the paper. Because, the word Godavari ends in E. And in earlier case, it was A, and A was replaced by by the rule Navyayi Bhavat. But then the same rule cannot be applied to Godavari. And it is very difficult to make Godavaro. And even commentators found it very difficult. And finally, they had to take a resort to a Shloka Vartika on the rule Ach Pratyan Vavapurvat Samalomnaha. This Shloka Vartika being very long and containing many lot of irrelevant material, I did not cite it here, but it refers to Godavari, and it says that the Samasanta Ach is added. And after this Samasanta is added by the general Tadita rule, Yasya teacher, E of Godavari is dropped. And then we have straight away the form Sapta Godavara. The next rule is Anya Padarthe cha Saujñayam. Oh, let me see what we have in, yeah, Chandra first. So in Chandra we have the rule Nadi Bhi. So the same meaning here as we found in Panini. The only difference is that cha is missing here. Actually, cha performs a very significant function in Panini's grammar at a number of places. And here it is meant to continue Sankhya from the previous context and also to discontinue it further. And we'll know more about it when we visit the next rule. I think this is all about Chandra because Chandra simply says Nadi Shabdaihi Sah Sankhya Shabdaha Ekarthaha Bhuvanti. Yes, one more illustration is added here. Dviyamunam and Triyamunam. And also the other examples are missing here. Saptagangam and Saptagodavaram and whatever we find, Panchanadam, they are missing. And he gives only two. Well, can we ask questions like why? I don't know. But my why is actually addressed to Chandra scholars, and they need not answer this question right away. But perhaps they can give a thought to this, that why such examples are found only in Chandra, why this another group of examples is found only in Kashi, if one borrows from the other, as it is the hypothesis on which some of you are working. अन्य पदार्थे च संज्ञायाम संख्या इति निवृत्तम नदी ग्रहणम अनुवर्तते. So here you will find the word sankhya is not continued in this sutra. And why? Because it is continued in the previous sutra on the basis of cha. The anuvritti was caused by cha. Cha allows continuation of sankhya in the rule Nadi Bhishcha. And there is a paribhasha in Paninian system, Chanukrushtam Nottaratra. Whatever is continued with the help of the particle cha does not continue any further. Chanukrushtam Nottaratra. So as I said a short while ago, that cha performs this double function. It, on the one hand, it allows continuation of a certain word from the previous context, and on the other hand, it disallows its continuation further. And thus, we don't have the word Sankhya being continued in this rule. And that is what he says in the first sentence, Sankhya iti nivrittam, and Nadi Grahanam anuvartate. Nadi is continued another object. Oh, my network stopped in between. Now, is it okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, madam. Yes.
Okay. There was a pause, I think. I don't know what happened, but my screen was showing the network is in process or something like that. Anyway, Nadi Grahanam Anuvartate, the word Nadi is Nadi Bhihi is continued, and therefore the meaning is Nadi Bhihi Saha Subantam Anya Padarthe Vartamanam Saujñayam Vishaye Samasyate. Two things are added in this sutra, and that is Anya Padartha and Saujña. Yeah, I was explaining the meaning of Anya Padartha. Anya Padartha literally means another object. Literally, Anyaha Padarthaha Anya Padartha. It is actually a distinct mark of a Bahuvrihi compound. Anekam Anya Padarthe. So when a particular compound denotes a meaning which is other than the meaning of its constituents, then it is Anya Padartha. when a compound refers to something outside the meaning of the constituents, that is Anya Padartha. And thus, we can say that this samasa is avyayi bhava only in form, but semantically or functionally, it is a bahuvrihi because it is Anya Padarthi. अव्ययी भावस्य समासो भवति विभाषाधिकारेऽपि नित्यसमासः एव अयम् न हि वाक्येन संज्ञा गम्यते. So he says that although the word vibhasha continues here, we cannot have parallel vakya conveying the same meaning. This is a nitya samasa, and nitya samasa traditionally is described as aswapada vigraha or avigraha. Nitya samasa has no vigraha, no parallel constituent analysis, or if at all you try to give any constituent analysis, it contains words which are not the words of the compound itself. Aswapada vigraha. So, in other words, if we have a compound Unmatta Gangam Namadeshaha, we have two constituents Unmatta Ganga, and if it has to refer to Anya Padartha, we will have to phrase the sentence as Unmatta Ganga Yasmin Deshe. So Desha is Anya Padartha and Unmatta and Ganga are the constituents. So the compound conveys nothing either about Unmatta or about Ganga, but something about another object, and that is Desha. And yes, and earlier he says, Nahi Vakyena Saudnya Gamyate. So if we try to convey the same meaning by the Vakya Unmatta Ganga Yasmin Deshe, we cannot use that sentence as a name. A name has always to be very short, one word, whereas this Vakya contains 3 or 4 words, Unmatta Ganga Yasmin Desha, and nobody is found to be using phrases or sentences like this as Saudnya, because Saudnya is always a proper name, always a short word. So the meaning, as I told you, it's very clear. Is it compounded with the name of a river? Unumatta means intoxicated, literally. You can say in context of Ganga as frantically flowing here and there. So the flow of or the stream of Ganga is not straight or slow, but there are many ups and downs, and it is moving frantically here and there. So Unmatta Ganga Yasmin Deshe Saha Unmatta Gangam Nama Desha. Unmatta Gangam is a name of a particular region, and the identity of that region is Unmatta Ganga. I don't think it is necessary to go for the derivation of this word because it is the same as Sapta Gangam, etc. The same Unmatta Sa, Ganga Sa. Then Gosri Rupa Sarjanasya makes this Unmatta Ganga and Unmatta Ganga. Similarly, we have names of different regions like Lohita Gangam, the region in which Ganges is reddish. But once we accept it as a proper name, we are not supposed to find out whether Ganga in that particular region is really Unmatta or not, because it's ultimately it's a proper name. Whether it is Anvartha or not is not our business, is not the business of the Vaiyakarana. It is the business of the semanticis, you can say. So Lohita Gangam, where Ganga is reddish, Krishna Gangam. I wonder if Ganga ever was of this color, because Ganga is always described as having a Shubhra, pure white flow or stream. And the flow or the stream of Yamuna is contrasted with Ganga. Yamuna is always black and Ganga is always white. And that is why, if you remember in Raghuvamsha 13th canto, if I am not mistaken, there is a beautiful Ganga Yamuna Varnanam or Ganga Yamuna Sangama Varnanam. And Kalidasa has actually showered beautiful images or upamas there to show how Yamuna looks black and against that Ganga is so white. So I really don't know whether there was any place where Ganga was Krishna. And actually whether there were any regions bearing these proper names. Unmatta Ganga, Lohita Ganga, Krishna Ganga, even one more, Shanair Gangam. Ganga is very slow in that particular region. Anya padarthe iti kim? Krishna Venna. Krishna and Venna. Actually, they are the names of the same river. Krishna cha asau Venna cha. So it's a karmadharaya samasa. By the rule Visheshanam Visheshyana Bahulam. So it's Venna, which is Krishna, because it is again, its water is blackish, might be. Therefore, Krishna cha asau Venna cha, Krishna Venna. Since it doesn't denote Anya Padartha, there is no samas. Saudnyayam iti kim? Shighra Gango Deshaha. So no region is identified by Ganga flowing very fast. As we have seen earlier, Ganga flowing very slow. Shanair Gangam is the name of a region, but there is no name of any region where Ganga is flowing fast. Shighra Gango Desha is just a description of a particular region where Ganga flows very fast. So with this, we have come to the end of Avyayi Bhava section. And yes, but we have yet to finish Chandra on this route. And Chandra says, Anyarthe Namni. In his usual style, Chandracharya has abbreviated Anya Padartha to Anyartha and Saudnyayam to Namni. Anya Padarthe Nadi Shabdaihi Saha Subantam Saudnyayam Ekarthi Bhavati. Unmatta Gangam. Oh, there is one more. Tushnim Gangam. Ganga is very silent at a particular place. Anyarthe iti kim? Krishna Venna Nama Nadi. Namni iti kim? Shighra Gango Deshaha. So there is nothing new stated by Chandracharya here. The same thing is repeated from Kashika. Therefore, we can move to the next rule. Here is one more rule at the end of the Avyayi Bhava section in Chandra. And that is Tan Napunsakam. Yadetad Atikrantam Tan Napunsakalingam Veditavyam. Tatha Chaiva Udaharata. So whatever was being processed earlier so far, that should be understood as having neuter gender. In this rule, he teaches just Napunsakatva or neuter gender for Avyayi Bhava compound. So it means that he doesn't prescribe Avyaya Saudnya, obviously, because he doesn't teach any Saudnya. So what he says is that all Avyayi Bhava compounds, they are to be used or declined in Napunsakalinga. Tatha Chaiva Udaratam, what he means is that that way already examples are given. So all examples we have seen earlier of Avyaya Bhava, they are already in Napumsaka. Tatha cha eva udari. And here comes to end the Avyaya Bhava section also of Chandra. And now, as Mahesh suggested, we will be keeping Chandra aside for some time and focusing only on Kashika till we come to the end of the Tatpurush, Vibhakti Tatpurusha, excluding, as he said, Shashti Samas. And that is mainly because the very next tool in Chandra is nothing but a summary of all these sutras. So he has subsumed or he has compressed all these sutras which we are going to read into one sutra. So Tatpurushaha. Tatpurushaha iti saujna adhikriyate prag bahuvrihe. The name Tatpurusha is appointed or it is regarded as the section heading till the name Bahuvrihi appears or till the mention of Bahuvrihi appears in a sutra. Tatpurusha iti saujna adhikriyate. Yan ita urdhvam anukramishyamaha tatpurusha saujnyaha te veditavyaha. So what he has stated in the previous sentence is made more clear in this sentence. So whatever compounds we are going to state henceforth are to be understood as carrying the name Tatpurusha. Vakshyati Dvitiya Shritatita Patita Iti. The very next sutra we have here teaching Tatpurusha compounds, and we will read it shortly. Kashtashritah and so on. Urvacharya Saujnya Cheyam Mahati Tad Angikaranam Upadhehe Api Tadiyasya Parigrahartham. This is again a very long term, Purvacharyas, and it comes from Purvacharyas. Generally, whenever these commentators they come across a long term, they take it as a Purvacharya Samya. They take it as having been or having borrowed from the earlier Acharyas. So, Purvacharya Samya cha iyam Mahati. And why has it been adopted by Panini? Tad angikaranam upadhehe api tadiyasya parigrahartham. Panini has accepted this term in order to also accept its upadhi. And upadhi literally means attribute or property or mark, feature or peculiarity. So each and every samasa has its very distinct feature. Tatpurush, the distinct feature of Tatpurusha is Uttara Padartha Pradhanyam. The distinct feature of Avyaya Bhava, as we have seen, is Purva Padartha Pradhanyam. So when Panini uses the word Tatpurusha, Panini wants to convey that whatever samasas are being taught here, they always are Uttara Padartha Pradhana. Actually, how far this claim is correct, we have to see, because I think in the beginning of this second pada of the second chapter, we'll be perhaps reading some samasas, some tatpurushas, where it is not Uttara Pada, but it is a Purva Pada, which is Pradhan. We'll come to that later and then we'll verify. So why Kashika makes this comment is not really clear, in the sense that it doesn't seem to be very relevant. In case of Avyaya Bhava, it was justified because Avyaya Bhava, the word Avyayi particularly in that, suggested two things, that Avyaya is a component in almost all these samasas, and the samasa itself is an avyaya. But here, as far as Tatpurusha is concerned, what more we know from this name is that it is just a sample term for the whole class. Tasya Purusha Tatpurusha. It is said that this adhikara, Tatpurusha, cancels the earlier adhikara, that is avyayi bhava. And this needs to be specifically stated, because if it is not stated, avyayi bhava also could continue, because this is a very general practice in Panini's grammar. That many, once you set up an adhikara, it is continued unless and until another adhikara which is not compatible with it is discontinued. So here what is continued is samasaha. What is discontinued is avyayi bhava. Why? Because both avyayi bhava and tatpurusha, they appear in ekasavnyadhikara. Apart from ekasavnyadhikara, you can continue words as long as they are compatible. But in ekasavnyadhikara, ya eka, ya savnya para anavakasha ch, that name alone holds. So either tatpurusha or avyayi bhava. So because of ekasavnyadhikara, avyayi bhava is not continued. But how then the word samasa, which also comes under ekasavnyadhikara, continues? Well, it is simply because Panini himself says akadara ekasavnya. So on the basis of the samarthya of the word akadarat, samasaha is continued. In case of the continuation of sup, saha, supa, there is no question, because they are, none of them is a savnya. So this is how this whole practice of anuvritti also has to be taken into consideration. Tatpurusha pradeshaha, tatpurushe kruti bahulam ittevam adeshaha. We have already seen what pradesha means. So where do we find the word tatpurusha used in Panini Sutra? And that is in sutras like Tatpurushe Kruti Bahulam. So Panini prescribes certain grammatical operations to Tatpurusha in certain sutras, and therefore the word Tatpurusha is found there, and thus it becomes meaningful. I mean, the giving a savnya becomes meaningful. So Tatpurushaha, and then Dviguscha. Dviguscha samasaha tatpurusha savnyaha bhavati. Actually, we are expecting another adhikara here, but this is not an adhikara. When he says pratyayaha, parascha, adyudattascha, in the beginning of the third chapter, what we understand is the word pratyayaha is adhikara, parascha is also adhikara, and adyudattascha is also an adhikara. In the same manner, we would have expected that Purusha is an adhikara and Viguscha on account of cha, Vigu also is continued in the following rules. But that is not the case. Number one, on the basis of samarthya, and also it is that is not the fact, as we find in later rules. Vigu is not to be continued. And yes, of course, it is Vakhyana. Viguscha samasaha tatpurusha savnya bhuvat. So it is only in order to extend the name Tatpurusha to Dvigu, which is another kind of samasa. It is mentioned here. Dviguscha samasaha tatpurusha savnyaha bhavati. Actually, we are not really very happy with this rule, why Panini put it here. And nor are some of the commentators who very clearly state that this rule is misplaced. And instead of that, Panini could have phrased another rule when he is actually defining Dvigu. In one of the rules, I don't remember the number, but he says Sankhya Purvo Dviguhu. So there he could perhaps say Sankhya Purvo Dviguscha. and then this cha could have continued Tatpurusha naturally. That would have been a better phrasing and also a better place for the rule Dviguscha. Anyway, it is put here, I don't know whether by Panini or during the process of the redaction of these sutras by later scholars, later Vayakaranas, it happened. It's very difficult to say. Why is this rule or why is this Saudhnya Tatpurusha extended to Dvigu is explained further. Dvigoho Tatpurushatve Samasantaha Prayojanam. Dvigu is called Tatpurusha because Dvigu inherits certain grammatical operations of Tatpurusha, and they are Samasantaha. A bunch of suffixes taught by Panini to be added at the end of a compound, and they are taught as the last part of the Taddhita section in the fourth pada of the fifth chapter. The whole section is called Samasanta section, and it begins with the Adhikara Samasantaha. And then he gives examples in which we find that the rules of Tatpurusha, or rather Samasanta rules of Tatpurusha, apply also to Dvigu. And one such example is Pancharaji, and similarly Dasharaji. I think perhaps on my paper I have given that the derivation of Pancha Rajanaha Samarutaha. So whenever we have a Dvigu, it is either Samahara or Tadditartha or Uttarapada. There are three conditions: Tadditartha, Uttarapada, Samaharaj. So here we have Samahara. Pancha Rajana Samaruta, 5 things put together. Panchanjas, Rajanjas, Panchan, Rajan, it's okay. Now at the next stage, there is a Samasanta suffix touch added to this compound Pancharajan, and that is by the rule Rajaha Sakipyash touch, which actually is a rule in the Tatpurusha section. It is governed by Tatpurushasya. The word Tatpurushasya continued in this rule from the earlier context. So the rule which belongs to Tatpurusha also belongs to Dvigu in this particular example. And then we have by the rule Nastadite, the dropping of Na, and we have Pancharaj. Actually, it is Tilopa, not dropping of U. So it becomes Pancharaj U. And then further, there is a rule Ni Dvigoho, which teaches the feminine suffix Ni to be added here. And then we have the final word or samasa, Pancharaji. Generally, we expect Pancharajam, but here we have Pancharaji by the rule Dvigoho, Pancharaji and Dasharaji. So all these details actually they are applicable in the context of Dvigu, but I put them here, put the prakriyas here in order to show that the Samasanta rules applicable to Tatpurusha become also applicable to Dvigu. Pancharaji, Dasharaji, and then Vyahaha, Trahaha. Also, I have given this example of Vyahaha, Dvi, Au, Ahan, Au. And then again, this Samasanta touch by the same rule, Raja Sakipesh touch. And there is another rule, Annash Takhoho Eva. This rule teaches Tilopo. So we have again here, as we had in earlier case, Tilopo of Rajan, we have Tilopo of Ahan, and we have Dvi, Aha, and then Dvyahaha. And it is used only in masculine by the rule Ratra Naha Kumsi. So this is how these compounds which bear the name Dvigu also carry the name Tatpurusha, and then only they are entitled to take Samasana. Dviguscha Samasaha Tatpurusha Saudhyo Bhavati, Dvigoho Tatpurushatve Samasantaha Prayojanam, Pancharaji, Dasharaji, Vyahaha, Trahaha, Panchagavam, Dashagavam, they are not very difficult to derive. Therefore, I haven't put them on the paper. Now begins the section which generally is called Vibhakti Tatpurusha. So the Purva Pada in different Vibhaktis like Dvitiya, Tritiya, Chaturthi, etc. Is compounded with certain words, and that list of words is given in the sutras. So here the first rule is Dvitiya Shritatita Patita Gatatyasta Prapta Pannaihi. Sup supa iti vartate. Tasya visheshanam etat Dvitiya. So Dvitiya sup will be the complete phrase. Dvitiya is a visheshana, so you cannot simply construe Dvitiya as it is with sup. Therefore, you have to modify it into Dvitiyantam and sup into Subantam. Dvitiyantam Subantam Shritadibhihi saha samasyate. Shrita, Atita, Patita, Gata, Atyasta, Prapta and Apan. With these words, a word in the accusative is compounded, and that compound is called Tatpurusha. This is a very straightforward meaning of the rule and a very simple case of Dvitiya Tatpurusha. And we have a complete listing of words here with examples for each. Kashtam Shritaha, Kashta Shritaha. So one who has resorted to, taken refuge in, or who has rested in Kashta, hardship. So we have Dvitiya Kashtam and Shritaha as it is mentioned in the rule. Atita, yes, there is one more example. Naraka Shritaha, Narakam Shritaha. I wonder if anyone would like to take refuge in or take resort to Naraka, Narakam Shritaha, but he must have been forced to go there. Atita, Kantaram Atitaha, Kantaratitaha. Atita means gone beyond or crossed. So one who has crossed forest is Kantaratitaha. Patitaha, Narakam Patitaha, Patitaha fallen. One who has fallen into Narak. Gataha, Gramam Gataha, Gramagataha. Very easy, gone to a village or a town. Apannaha, Sukham Apannaha, Sukhapannaha. Apanna, gone into or obtained. One who has reached or one who has obtained happiness. Dukhapannaha. Sukham Apannaha, Sukhapannaha, Dukham Apannaha, Dukhapannaha. So all words are exhausted. No? So he has given example for each and every word mentioned in the sutra. Good. And then further, there is a Vartika which extends the scope of this rule to a few more words. And he says, Shritadishu Gamigamyadinam Upasankyanam. Among the words Shrita, etc., should be added words Gami, Gami, etc. Gamigamyadinam Upasankyanam. And thus we can have compounds like Grama Gami from the sentence Gramam Gami. Gami actually is not a Paninian derivation. It is derived with an unadi suffix. Game Rinihi. Ini unadi suffix added to Gami and then it becomes Gamin. So Gamin obviously means one who goes. Gamin. Similarly, Gamin. Gamin is, yes, a Paninian word. It is derived with the suffix nini added to the root gama. By the rule, avashyaka dhamarniya yoho ninihi. rule number 33170. So here an additional meaning is understood, and that is avashyaka, avashyam gacchati, sahagamin, sahagami. So nin is added to gama, and the word derived is gamin, and there is a slight addition to the meaning of gamin, not just one who goes, but one who necessarily goes, avashyam gacchati. Thus, we have the compound gramam gami, gramagami. And there is one more, odanam bubukshuhu, odana bubukshuhu. Bubukshu is a krudanta derived from bhuja, with the suffix u, san ashamsa bhiksha uhu. This is the rule in Panini's grammar. Sana shamsa bhiksha uhu. So bhuja with the suffix san, which denotes repetitive action, punah punah bhungte, and then the suffix u added to it, krut suffix, simply in the sense of kartru. So punah punah bhungte bubukshu. Punah punah bhoktum ichchati. Oh, sorry, sun doesn't convey punah punah, isn't? Sun conveys simply ichcha. Dhatof karmanah samana kartrukat ichchayam. I'm extremely sorry. It is only ichcha. Bhoktum ichchati bubukshu. So one who wants to eat, that's all. And here we have Dvitiya Odanam Bubukshu. Actually, if you read this Vibhakti section in Panini's grammar, Dvitiya is not allowed with Krudantas, which are construed with a Karman. They say Shashti. But there is one Apavada to that, and the Lokavyaya Nishtha Khalartha Trunam is that Apavada. And therefore we have Dvitiya is allowed here. So it's a very, very regular construction. Udanam bubukshu, udana bubukshu. And there could be some more. Now, just to share my own thoughts on this, when I studied this rule for the first time when I was a student, I found this list to be very random. Shrita, Atita, Atyasta, Apanna, etc. So how did Panini select these words? And what was the logic behind it? And why don't we have a compound with other ktantas? All these words are, ktantas. Shrita, Atita, Patita, Gata, Atyasta, Apan. They are all words ending in ta. So why he doesn't simply says Vidyaktena or something like that? That was the first question which came to my mind. And then I studied these ktantas very carefully. And I found that although they end in kto, the general meaning of kto, that is karman or bhava, is not conveyed by this. They are a specific type of ktantas. They all convey kartru. They are kartari ktantas, used in the sense of kartru. That means actually more common expression would be gatavan, shritavan, atitavan, because tavat is assigned the task of conveying kartu. Kta is assigned the task of conveying karman. But there are a few cases which have been noted down by Panini in a couple of rules, where even this suffix kta conveys the kartru. And why I say all this is because perhaps I have shared my this experience, which I am going to tell you with some of my old students. Maybe Mahesh might be knowing it, Nidhi also might be knowing it. But when I engaged a group of school teachers in a workshop in Mumbai, And I told them that here this to conveys kartru. They all shouted at me and they said, no, it is kabudhavi. And then I said, what is the meaning of kabudhavi? And they said, it is karmani bhutkal vachak dhatu sale vishesha. How come kto can convey kartru? No. Only ktavat can convey kartru, kto can never convey kartru. And then I asked them a very simple question. Devadattaha वृक्षे वृक्षस्य अधस्तात् स्थितः. So what kto is that? What the kto in sthita convey? And they again told me, wait, it is kabudhavi, it is karmani only, because this is how we are taught. So unfortunately, even these teachers, they did not pay notice to this fact that there is a group of dhatus, and there are certain situations in which a root takes the suffix to in the sense of kartu. And these are very, very few examples of this. And beyond these examples or beyond these words, we don't have any other case, according to Panini, of kta conveying kartru being compounded. This is a simple conclusion I arrived at finally. And then I found these two rules. Adi karmanik taha kartaricha. This is a rule 3471. So if adi karman is to be denoted, kto is added to a root in the sense of kartru. And the example is prakrutaha katam devadatta. Devadatta began to make kata. And there are many more. I think you will come across a few more examples also as we proceed further. And then there is a long rule. Gatyartha karmaka shrishashing sthasa vasa jana ruha jiryati jascha. This is 70. And it clearly says that all the roots conveying the meaning gatyartha, to go, all the akarmaka roots, and further the roots shrishashing stha, etc., etc. They take the suffix kta in the sense of kartu. And therefore, we have two parallel constructions in case of roots conveying the meaning gama, gramam gataha and gramam gatavan at the same time. So, just I want to sum up by saying that Panini must have seen only this limited group of words ending in kto, conveying kartru, which are compounded. So it's not a random collection of words as it appeared to me. Anyway, this is a very, very, again, distantly connected comment which I wanted to make, and perhaps I thought it would be worthwhile if your knowledge of kto and ktavat is just given a soft brushing up. Now we proceed to the next sutra, Swayam Ktena. Why are all of you silent all this while? Nobody wants to make any comment on this. I would really love to have some comment. I have been talking all the while. Mahesh, you don't have any comment to make?
No, in fact, I had lost connection sometime, so I could not.
Oh, you
hear,
had lost connection.
Yeah, I've just joined, so yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I lost when you were talking about Nadi Beach Chan. Since then,
very
I lost to this topic. Anyway,
Nidhi, maybe is she present today? I don't know. Okay, all right. Nobody wants to say anything. Swayam Ktena. Swayam etad avyayam atmana इत्यस्य अर्थे वर्तते. तस्य द्वितीयया सह संबंधो नोपपद्यते इति द्वितीयाग्रहणम् उत्तरार्थम् अनुवर्तते. The word swayam is an avyaya and it means atmana. which means by himself, by one's own self, literally. Since this avyaya cannot be construed with or cannot be used in Dvitiya, tasya Dvitiyaya sah sambandho nopapadyate. Nopapadyate, it cannot be justified, it cannot be found. So its connection with Dvitiya cannot be found. And therefore, the word Dvitiya, which is continued from the earlier context in this rule, is actually present in this rule for the sake of its continuation in the next rule. So it is there. Swayam Tena Dvitiya is there, but Dvitiya is not at all a part of the meaning or the phrasing of the rule. It is present because it is to be continued in the next rule. This is the meaning of this. Sambandho nopapadyate iti dvitiya grahanam uttarartham anuvartate. Such, uttarartham anuvartanam is a common practice in Panini's grammar. A particular word is not meant for that particular sutra, but it is meaningful in the following sutra, and therefore it is present in that sutra. Swayam ityetat subantam ktantena saha samasyate. So this avyaya, which is a subanta, is compounded with a ktanta word. So ktena is continued in this. No, ktena is already present in this. Swayam ktena. So the context is ktena, and the context dvitiya is temporarily withheld. Swayam ityetat subantam ktantena saha samasyate tatpurushascha samaso bhavati. Swayam dhautau padau. Dhauta is again a ktanta, which is derived from the root dhav. We have actually two roots in Panini's Dhatu Patha of the same form, dhav. One dhav means to run, that is, I think, probably in the Parasmay Pada. And this other dhav, which is in Ubhay Pada, means to clean, to cleanse, to wash away. So Swayam Dhautau Padav means feet washed by oneself. And once again, I have really failed to understand the meaning of this compound and also its context. If anyone can offer any explanation for this Swayam Dhautau Padav. Otherwise, one's own feet are not washed by oneself. We have been washing our own feet always. Or does it refer to some deity? I don't know. Swayam Dhautau Padav. Or does it mean automatically washed? No, because this Swayam means Atmana, by himself. So try to find out some better explanation for Swayam Dhautau Padav. But commentator's job is over after they find a suitable example for the rule, and they have found this Swayam Dhautau. And then we have another illustration, that is Swayam Vilinam Ajya. Ajya is clarified better. Ghee, which is Swayam Vilinam. It is melted. Li is a root preceded by the upasarga li. Vi conveys the meaning to melt, disappear, to perish, or to dissolve. So here is ghee, which melts by itself, or which has melted by itself. And again, which context it suggests is not clear to me. So far I read these commentaries, I couldn't find any explanation for this. Generally, commentators do not throw much light on these illustrations. Very rarely they do so. Swayam Dhautau Padau, Swayam Vilinam ऐकपद्यम् ऐकस्वर्यं च समासात् भवति. This is a basic question. When you say swayam dhauto pado, you can also make it as a sentence swayam dhauto pado. So what is the difference between the vakya and the sentence? As far as the wording, as far as the anupurvi is concerned, it is the same. Generally in a compound we have vibhakti lopa, but here there is no question of vibhakti lopa. Swayam remains as it is, dhauta remains as it is. So what exactly is the difference between a compound and a vakya? And that is what he explains by saying aikapadyam aikaswaryam cha samasatvad bhavati. On account of its being a samasa, it becomes one word. So swayam dhauta is one word, not two words. Swayam vilinam also is one word. And since it is one word, it has one accent. Aikapadyam, aikaswaryam. We have seen earlier that each and every word in a sentence has a separate accent. Here, we don't have two different accents for swayam and dhauta or swayam and vilina. So this aikaswarya is on account of this samasa. And if we want to extend further this achievement of aikaswarya, then we can further say, as we find it in perhaps in Siddhanta Kaumudi. Yes, I remember the Swayam Krutasya Apatyam Swayam Kruti. Siddhanta Kaumudi most probably gives the example Swayam Krutam Swayam Krutam or Swayam Krutaha Swayam Krutaha. And then it becomes one name, and then we can derive further by adding suffixes, secondary derivatives like Swayam Krutihi, Swayam Vilinam also can be further, can further lead to secondary derivative like Swayam Vilinatvam Ajyasya Bhavati. We can add further suffixes by treating this as one word, that is Pratipadika. So this is about Swayam Krutam. Then we have the next tool, Katva Shepe. Here,
can I have a comment on this earlier rule?
which one?
Yes, so actually, Swayam Krutena, sorry. So what I feel is, since Panini has kind of put this section in the rules dealing with Dvitiya Tatpurushas,
Yes.
and not in the Tritiya Tatpurusha, because otherwise he could have also put it in the Tritiya Tatpurusha after Tritiya Tatkritarthena Gunavachanena, and we have the context of like Tatkruta Tena Krutam and so on. So it seems that though Swayam means Atmana, probably he still has some kind of karmani or the karma sense in mind. And can I take this as my question? Can we take this as an example of something like where, the idea that something is happening on its own, by its own, that kind of idea is there, and that's why the dhauta, etc. I don't know now how we are going to take this, either as Kartari Bhudhavi or Karmani Bhudhavi. That's also another question. But I somehow feel that, can we take this as a karma kartru construction, where fields are being washed by themselves, means without any efforts, easily, in the same way as Ajam, without anybody interfering. It itself gets coagulated. So otherwise I don't really see the reason why Panini puts it here in the Dvitiya section and not in the Tritiya section. Otherwise,
the usually the explanation that can be offered in such context is the anuvritti of ktena in the following rules. There are at least 3 or 4 rules which follow. They want ktena, And ktena is a common factor which is shared by Swayam, Khatwa, Sami, Kalaha, at least 4 sutras. So instead of putting it there, perhaps if Panini had put it in this Tritiya section, an additional word ktena perhaps he would have been required to use. So in order to exploit the context ktena, it's quite likely that he has put this is given. This generally such explanation is given also by commentators for the purpose of anuvritti, they say. Secondly, when you say this is what you call it, karma kartari, instead of that, I would rather say it's a reflexive construction. So atmanam, as I said in earlier case, also automatically. So there is nobody else. So I am not washing my feet. My feet are being washed by themselves. So, you know, these constructions, are they known as reflexive constructions? Perhaps such constructions are found in German. Maybe my German friend, ich wasche mich, something like that. So similar thing is the feet wash themselves. And in that case, my it would be kartari. Same thing. Atmanam dhavitavan.
Yes. Yes.
And then it will be kartari, is it?
Yeah.
So perhaps, yes, as you say, we can take it in the sense of Ditya, Swayam meaning not Atmana, but Atmanam. Atmanam Vilinavat Ajam. So it's ghee which itself melts, which automatically melts without any efforts by an external. And in that sense, as you say, it is karma kartari. Therefore, perhaps you might have compared it with karma kartari. So it's not unlikely, and therefore I always feel that unless we find the attestation, very difficult
Yes.
to. But as far as
Yeah.
traditional interpretation is concerned, we have to accept Swayam as Atmana.
Yeah.
And
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
so they very clearly say tasya dvitiyaya sah sambandho nopapadyate dvitiyartha sambhavat. So they don't want Swayam to be Dvitiyanta. But your interpretation is ingenious, yes, certainly. That would acquit Panini also of the fault of not continuing Dvitiya and stopping it for a while and then continuing it in the next tool, Khatvakshepi. So we go to the next, Khatvakshepi. And here Dvitiya continues from the previous context. Actually, when they say Ditya Grahana Uttarartham Anuvartate, these commentators or the Kashikakara appears to be meaning, as I already explained to you, that the word Ditya does continue in the rule Swayam Ktena, but it doesn't participate in the interpretation of the Sutra. Ditya is there, but it is just passive. And why it is there? Because it has to be continued in the next rule. Therefore, we have to continue the word Dvitiya here. But the other alternative that we find frequently to be adopted by commentators is that of Manduka Pluti. And Manduka Pluti means temporary discontinuation and recontinuation. So Mandukaha yatha utplutya gachanti, tatha shabdaha api te utplutya gachanti. So it's the word Dvitiya has jumped into this rule Khatvakshepe, also can be explained like this. And such Mandukaplutis are quite common in Panini's grammar, and they are justified. A particular word is temporarily discontinued on account of its incompatibility with the context, and that is quite justified, quite in the fitness of the things, and this kind of samarthya governs the whole of the Ashtadhyaya. So there is nothing unusual about it. When a Mandukapliti has this basis, then it is legitimate. But unfortunately, it has become a tool in the hands of the commentators, and it's so randomly used, even by Patanjali sometimes, that 15 rules pass by, and then in the 16th rule, the particular word is taken as Anuvrutta, only in order to justify certain example. So that is something which is difficult to accept. But the point which I want to drive at here is that there are two alternatives before the commentators. As we see here, the word is straightaway continued in all the subsequent rules. In some rules, it just sleeps without adding to the meaning of the rule, as we found in Swayamktena. And the other alternative is Mandukapli. It is not continued at all. It stays where it is. And then it takes a jump, maybe over 2 or 3 rules. And then it is present in the subsequent rules. That is very common. I haven't come across a statement like this. Uttarartham anuvartate. That means it is present in the rule and it doesn't convey any meaning. Anyway, just I wanted to point out this twofold method of interpreting anuvritti of a certain word. Katva kshepe, katva shabdah dvitiyantah ktantena sah kshepe gamyamane samasyate. The word katva, commonly known in the accusative, is compounded with aktanta, but here something additional is to be conveyed by the compound, and that is shape, abuse, or insult, or censure. So from time to time, we come across emotive meanings like this in Panini's sutras, which mark a unique feature of his grammar. And now my question is addressed to those international participants who are present here. Have you ever come across any grammar of any other language, say like Latin, or maybe grammar of your own respective languages like German or Japanese or whatever, Chinese, I don't know, where the basic statements take care of even emotives, attitudinal meanings as Panini does? Because this I find as a unique feature of Panini's grammar, which suggests that his very comprehensive approach to the language as not as just a means of communicating facts, but as a social event, not just as a carrier of a certain meaning, but as some scholars says, it's language is treated as a part of total human behavior by Panini. So even it takes into consideration the speaker's import. So I wonder if any other grammar of any language in the world has taken into consideration such meanings while describing a language. Can anyone tell me anything about it? Are the international scholars not present today?
Well, I would consider myself an international. It's very difficult to answer because first of all, I don't have such vast knowledge of the various grammatical traditions also in the West. But as far as I can tell, I think the situation is fundamentally different from the Indian. Usually, Western grammars do not stick to the tradition in the same way as we have it in India. So usually the examples are newly created. So no grammarian feels compelled in a way to replicate or to take over old examples. So usually they're just new examples, and because our grammars are usually descriptive, these are usually examples which are really taken from the tested language. I think it's more difficult now to judge the situation with the grammar by Panini, and also with the examples which we have now in the Kashika, because we're even still not quite sure about the sources in the Kashika. I mean, I would say now partly one of the sources of the Kashika could be the Chandravriti, but certainly not the only, if at all. And then, or if we go back to the Mahabharata, even there, I was wondering actually during your lectures, to what extent all these examples have been really studied in detail, and are there really extensive attempts to find the evidence for these examples in the literature which we have, because this could give us more information about to what extent these are really examples from the real life, and they're not just pure creations by the theoretical examples in a way. European grammars, at least that's my superficial impression, is have another audacia. I mean, the goal is to give a simple example as possible, and it should be something which is either attested or it is so simple that it is quite natural to find it somewhere. So I don't think that any such special considerations would be found in most European grammars in general.
Okay, but German language is quite similar to Sanskrit, they say, and therefore my next question: are you a German?
Well, it's difficult to say what I am. Yes, I'm a German. I have a German passport. In this respect, I'm certainly a German.
Yes and no. What I mean is that you speak German. You can speak German.
Sure.
Understand it.
Sure. I'm naturalized German, to be more correct.
No. My question is, it was actually. It was not Panini who attached these meanings to these forms, but they were inherent part of the language itself. Panini only discovered it. So when somebody says, for instance, Katva Rudhaha, this kshepa was really understood in the language by the listener. And this kshepa, which was understood by the listener, is only recorded by Panini. So do we have parallel constructions, say, not necessarily Katvarudu, but other constructions in German, maybe compounds or derivatives, where such emotive meanings also are an inherent part, indivisible part of that construction itself, that the word itself conveys some kind of an attitudinal, emotional meaning. Then only a comparison is possible.
It's difficult for me to say now. Concerning the similarity between the two languages, certainly the similarity which usually people have in mind is the ability to construct compounds, and German is quite well known in the West for this ability to construe some very long compounds. Mark Twain was complaining about this because we can really have a chain of words in a compound, which is not what English speakers are usually accustomed to. Concerning the examples, usually also in the lexicographical literature and in grammars, but especially in the lexicographical literatures, when we have examples, the attempt is usually done to give the most prominent example and also to give the exact quotation from where it is coming. Whether we have something similar to what we have here under this sutra is really difficult for me to say.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to put the question before you so that you can think about it later also.
Yeah.
So, coming back to our text, खट्वा शब्दः द्वितीयान्तः क्तान्तेन सह क्षेपे गम्यमाने समस्यते तत्पुरुष समासः भवति क्षेपः निन्दा स च समासार्थः एव. So that is the meaning of the compound itself, ninda. So only from the compound we understand kshepa, that is insult or censure. Tena vibhashadhikarepi nitya samasah eva ayam. And therefore, although the word vibhasha is continued in this sutra, we don't have another option of the sentence or constituent analysis. Why? Nahi vakyena kshepaha gamyate. As we have seen in the earlier case also, vakyena kshepaha na gamyate. By simply using the constituent analysis, you don't understand kshepa, that is insult or censure. So the example we will see first, and then we'll try to find out how it is true. Khattvarohanam cha iha vimarga prasthanasya upalakshanam. He actually he should have given the example first. The example is Khatvam Arudha, Khatvarudha. So the literal meaning is one who has mounted the bed. And by the bed is understood here the cot. Because bed is also in India, the bed is also something which is spread on the ground and you sleep on that. It's just a mattress spread on the ground also is a bed, but here bed means a cot. So Khatvam Arudha, one who has mounted a cot for sleeping, of course. So it is when we say Khatvam Arudha, it's a plain statement of facts. But when we use a compound Khatvarudha, it conveys Vimarga Prasthanam. It conveys that the person has taken to a wrong path. Vimarga, wrong path, not a proper path. Vigataha margaha. So the path taking you to some other direction. Vimarga prasthanasya upalakshana. So this is upalakshana, meaning mark or implication of something which is additional. So that is upalakshana. So it indicates vimarga prasthana. Khatvarohana indicates vimarga prasthana. It indicates that the person who has mounted the bed is going on a wrong path. And then, since it is an upalakshana, it means that any other word conveying such action of going on a wrong path is also compounded in the same manner. Because the word upalakshana means a particular representing general. So it's a kind of a lakshana. It is conveying a secondary meaning. If I remember correctly, and Nidhi, if she is present here, she can correct me and tell me what exactly is the case. But and even Mahesh, Upalakshana, I remember, is defined as Jnana Janaka Jnana Vishayaha. So Upalakshana is that which is an object of knowledge which takes you to another, or which generates another knowledge. And it is in this Shastric text, it is contrasted with Visheshana. Visheshana is a direct description, whereas Upalakshana is an indirect description. And then they give you examples like, again, if I remember correctly, Shubhravarnam Devadattasya Gruham and Kakavat Devadattasya Gruham. So Shubhravarnam, Shuklam, anything, Neelam, is a direct description of the house. If you want to identify Devadatta's house, you can find it on the basis of the white washing or the color, white painted all over. Whereas Kakavat Devadatta Graham means that is the house of Devadatta on which there is a crow. But the crow is sitting on that house only for a moment, and then it may fly, but still it becomes a mark. So this is the difference between Upalakshana and Visheshana. That is one way of describing it. And the word Upalakshana is, on a number of occasions I found, used to denote, as I say, a particular representing general. So here we have a particular example like Khatwarohana or Khatwaruda, but then it speaks for similar other examples, similar other expressions, which denote Vimarga Prasthana. This is to be understood from the word Upalakshana. Vimarga Prasthanasya Upalakshana. This is what I feel. This is how I understand from the word Upalakshana. Sarva eva avinitaha Khatwarudaha iti. So he means that whosoever behaves in this manner, whosoever takes to a wrong path, is called Khatwaruda. So not necessarily one who mounts the bed. And of course, this term is used in a very specific context, and that context is explained even in Mahabhashya and other commentaries, and that I will presently come to that. But what I want to point out here is Khatwaruda does not simply mean a person who has mounted the bed in a bad manner, in an immodest manner, but whosoever performs any immodest action is called Khatwaruda. So the word Khatwaruda is used in a very, very general sense. And now we come to the explanation of this shape of Khatwaruda. So Nyasa, which is again based on Mahabhashya, because I found this also in Mahabhashya, Aditya Snatva Guruna Abhyanujnatena Khatva Arodhavya. So Khatvarohana, in case of a student, is possible only after he completes his course in his Gurukula. Aditya, first of all, he has to complete his Adhyayana, Swadhyaya, maybe for 12 years, or in some cases the number changes. And then Snatva, after this education is complete, he has to take a religious bath. Snatva doesn't mean taking a bath as he does every day. This is a very specific kind of snana, which is known as Avabhrutha snana, perhaps. Avabhrutha snana, or I'm not sure, but this is a very, very specific kind of snana, which he takes only after the education is complete, and then he has to take permission of the teacher, Guruna Abhyanujnataha. When the teacher gives him permission, yes, now you can sleep on the bed. As long as he was studying in the Gurukula, he was not allowed to mount the bed, but he was forced to, or he was always asked to sleep on the ground. This is why mounting the bed is regarded as an immodest action. So he says, Yattu anyatha katvarohanam. So anyatha means otherwise, if at all, somebody mounts a bed. Tad vimarga prasthanam eva natu katvarohanam eva. So that is an indication of doing something immodest, or this is an indication of ill behavior. Khatva rudho jalmaha, khatva plutaha. Pluta means jumped. So one who has jumped, and this jumping on the bed indicates a rash action. So he has no patience. He doesn't want to wait till his education is complete. And so he straight away jumps on the bed. And there, I really wonder whether he can find a bed in the Gurukula. How can he do that? Anyway, we'll have to read those ritual texts more carefully. Khatva plutaha apatha prasthitaha ityarthaha. So what he wants to convey is that the word Khatvarudha need not be taken in its literal sense. It is always to be understood in its lakshanika sense. It is an upalakshana. Apatha prasthitaha ityarthaha. Khatvarudho jalmaha. Jalma means a rascal, a rogue, a rash person. And apatha prasthita means taken to a wrong path. Okay, so we have finished this Khatvakshati. Now, can anyone tell me what
Professor
time it
Bhatt, just one note, if I may.
is?
Because you
Yes.
were asking about parallels in German or any Western language, it's not quite similar, but of course we do have such compounds also in English and in German, like busybody in English or Wichtigtuer in German, which is, so the literal translation of Wichtigtuer would be important maker, which means actually one who pretends to be very important, and he's boasting, and so it's negatively with negative connotation. Busybody is a similar compound. Yeah, busybody is of course negatively intended. So I mean, we have such compounds also in these languages. I mean, it's partly similar with this upalakshana also in these compounds. So busybody is not to be understood literally. It's always with this negative connotation of a rascal and mischief, bad person.
Okay. No, but then my next question, which I had already asked you, is that has any grammarian or has any scholar who has written a grammar of either German or English taken note of this, that this compound itself denotes this meaning? It is because it is compounded. And if you say busy body, well, it will convey something different. It will not have that meaning. So whether it has been taken note of in grammar texts, that was my question. But anyway, it is not very much relevant here. So we can postpone it. Okay, how long we can continue? Can you tell me?
Right now it's 6:10.
Yeah, we still have time. There's one comment which I wanted to make, and this is not concerning this particular rule, but I mean, we were talking about this continuation of Dvitiya. Actually, I don't understand one thing, that why commentators don't treat Dvitiya as a adhikara, because if you accept Dvitiya as a adhikara, then as we know in the case of adhikara, that adhikara will become applicable or will play its role wherever there is a scope. So in case of the Swayamktena, there is no scope for Dvitiya to play any role, and therefore it is not I mean, it does not. I mean, it is not in, part of the commentary there, but in the next rule it can still continue. So adhikara can have that kind of privilege, right? So why don't they treat dvitiya as a adhikara? And isn't it a adhikara? That will be simple answer probably.
Actually, the word adhikara is not very precisely used. As I told you, Patanjali uses the word adhikara also to denote a larger anvritti. So, adhikara into inverted comma, which according to us is confined to words like samasaha, tadvitaha, dhatuho. It is quite, extensively used by Patanjali also to cover such cases. So, no problem. It's only because they don't say explicitly that it is adhikara, but actually it is adhikara in the sense that it is continued for a long section. It is continued in a long section of rules. So the only thing is they should have honored your suggestion of explicitly mentioning it as an adhikara, and then they perhaps would not have required to explain Vityagranam Uttarartham Anuvartate or Mandukaplati, of course, within Adhikara is allowed. Yes, Adhikara could have been, it could have been straight away mentioned as Adhikara. I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we can have one more rule probably.
Okay.
We have time.
All right. So the next tool is
Sorry,
B.
so if possible, I want to ask something.
Yeah.
Okay. So with regard to the word form, the word gramagami, so you mentioned that the meaning condition avashyaka ada tamarunya is included in this word form, gramagami, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, so, but I'm wondering, I checked the derivation, the sutra of Unadi Sutra, so the commentary of Ujjwala Datta, so we cannot see any meaning condition in this regard, the grammar gami. And we have the same example in the Chandra Panjika as Chandra Vritti under the rule Unadeha 131. So the Panchika has explained the derivation of Gramagami. Here we cannot see any trace of the meaning condition of Vashyaka, etc. So my question is, the Gramagami always includes the meaning of Avashyaka, etc. This is my question.
As far as Padani is concerned, and if we want to derive the word Gamini in Padani system, we need to have the suffix nini. Nini means nil. And unless we have this Anubandha, we cannot have this change, Ata Upadhayaha, Ga changed into Ga. So if we want to derive the word Gamin from the root Gama, then we need Nini suffix, and Panini's rule Avashyakadamarna Yohu Ninihi provides for that. If we can find out any other suffix having the form in with certain Anubandha and without any mini condition, then we can perhaps derive the word from Gamin. But then we will have to check. But this is the explanation perhaps I found also in one of the commentaries. Let me check it. Yeah, it's in front of me. This explanation is given in Padamanjari. Gramam gami iti avashyakenihi. Well, this much he says, and then I found this rule avashyaka dhamaraniya yohonini. So we have to check if the word or the form gamin can be otherwise derived without the help of this meaning avashyaka dhamaraniya yohonini, as you found it in case of Chandra. Whether it is possible in Panini, that I will have to check.
Are we talking about the form with gami or gami simply?
Gami.
Sorry,
Gami is
gami,
I
gami.
I think Chojin, yeah, he's curious about the form grama gami with a, no vriddhi, without vriddhi.
Is it so?
Yeah. That's his question.
I'm talking about grama gami.
Oh, I have heard Grama Gami.
Sorry.
It's okay. No, I did not mention the rule Avashyaka Dhamaraniya Yohonini in case of Grama Gamin.
Uh-huh.
Right? On the contrary, I said in case of Gamin, we have to accept the Aunadika Sutra. Unadi Sutra, Game Rinihi. So the suffix ini is added to the root Gama. And then we have the form Gamin. Whereas, in order to explain the word Gamin, then we have to take recourse to the rule Avashyaka Dhamaraniya. So there are two different forms and two different rules also for them. So for Gamin, it is Unadi Sutra, and for Gamin, it is Panini Sutra.
Aha, I see. Okay.
Sorry
Okay,
for-
thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, so rule number 27. Okay? No, yeah, 27. Sami. Again, a very strange case like Slayam. Sami ityetad avyayam ardhashabda paryayaha tasya asattvavachitvat dvitiyaya nasti sambandha. Sami is an indeclinable and it conveys the meaning half. So, though it is an indeclinable, it has an adjectival value actually, half. Or in the half manner, maybe you can say, halfly. Tasya asattvavachitvat. So since the word half is not a sattvavachan, then therefore it cannot be connected with dvitiya. That means it cannot be declined in the accusative case. Because only sattvas can become subantas. Sattva means a dravya, and literally sattva means a dravya means a substance. That means an entity, a being, something concrete is sattva. But not so in Panini's grammar. Panini has extended the concept of sattva to everything in this world which can be expressed with number and gender. And therefore he defines sattva as linga sankhyanvitam sattva. So whatever has a gender and number is a sattva, not necessarily an entity. This is, of course, this doesn't apply here, but I just wanted to give you the basic concept of what sattva is. Though generally sattva means an entity, in the domain of grammar, it's a comprehensive term denoting all that has gender and number, and therefore even akashaha, vayuhu, or antarala, they are actually in the what you call it, according to the science of physics. I don't know whether you can call them a substance. Akashaha, vayu, antaralam, or even some mental objects like sankalpaha, vicharaha, kalpana. All these words are sattvavachakas because they are all used with a particular gender and in a number. Even non-entities in the world of grammar, non-entities like khapushpa and there are many Vandya Sutra, etc. They are also sattvas, having sattva, having satta. So it's a very strange concept, or it's a very strange way of defining sattva in grammar. It's a very formal definition of sattva that you have to understand. And Sami does not convey sattva in any one of these meanings, neither in its very original meaning, dravya, or in its extended meaning, linga sankhyanvita. Therefore, it cannot be construed in Vidya. Whatever has gender and number can be construed in Vidya, they say that. And therefore, it cannot take accusative. So, Sami Subantam Tantena Sahasamajna. A case ending is added to it only in order to make it a pado. That's all. And that is true in case of each and every avyaya. Tatpurusha samasaha bhavati. So again, Ditya is temporarily discontinued here, and it's the avyaya sami which is compounded with ktanta. So ktena, this context is continued here from swayam ktena katvakshepe sami, and also in kalaha, the next two. Tat subantam ktantena samasate tat purushya samasa bhavati. So we have samasa like sami kritam, sami pitam, sami kritam, half finished. So when we say half finished, what is the status of half? Status in the sense that to which part of speech it belongs. Is it an adjective, noun, or a verb? Or what is the fourth part of speech? So it is none of these, and it is just an indeclinable. So you can say it is used here adverbially. Half made, half drunk. So if you leave half the glass without drinking on the table, it is sami pitam. Sami bhuktam. If you leave food in your platter without finishing, it becomes sami bhuktam. Aikapadyam, aikaswaryam, samasatva bhavati, the same as we saw earlier. And then, as I said earlier, in case of swayam kruta, we can also say the same thing in case of sami kruta, and that is we can add a secondary derivative suffix, and we can further derive from sami kruta a word like sami krutatva or sami krutavat. This is the advantage of making sami with kta accompanied. But well, I don't know whether it was actually used that way. Okay, so shall we stop here then for today?
Yes, we can stop here for now. So thank you very much. And yeah, so we'll continue on Saturday with the next rule. So
Yes.
thanks everybody for joining, and thanks to Professor Bhate for giving this talk today. And be safe and healthy throughout the week. See you again on Saturday. So thank you very much. Bye bye to everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.